Okay, so today we're going to do Unit 2, Day 14 notes, which is basically reviewing different school unit problems for Unit 2. So let's start with number 1. The table below shows the number of miles Paul ran over 5 days. What is the approximate average rate of change in the number of miles Paul ran from day 2 to day 5? So first and foremost, average rate of change just basically means slope. And the word approximate means round. So in other words, what is the rounded slope of miles Paul ran from day 2 to day 5? So anytime they give you two specific numbers, those are the ones you're going to focus. So they want you to find the slope from day 2 to day 5. So everything else on the table, I'm going to mark out because it doesn't matter. The only thing I care about is those two. So I'm going to find the difference in those two. So start with the first one. 2.5 minus 0.75, and that gives you 1.75. And then the other one, 5 minus 2, gives you 3. So remember, the slope is the rise over the run, which means the right side over the left side. So the right side is 1.75 over the left side. So 1.75 divided by 3 comes out to be about 0.58. And of course it's rounded. So if you round this, it rounds to 0.6, which is answer choice B. Or you could just say 0.60. Okay? Number 2. The table shows the cost to rent a movie for a different number of days at a movie rental store. What is the meaning of the rate of change of data? So rate of change, of course, means slope. So what is the meaning of the slope for the data? So first, let's just find the slope, okay? And because this one, they didn't give us specific numbers or specific days or specific x's to look for, we're going to have to find the pattern for both the left side and the right side completely. So let's start. 13.5 minus 9.75 gives you 3.75. Then 9.75 minus 8.5 gives me 1.25. And then 8.5 minus 6 is 2.5. The other side, 9 minus 6 is 3. 6 minus 5 is 1. 5 minus 3 is 2. So now if I set up my slope, and remember it's the right side over the left side, that's 3.75 over 3, 1.25 over 1, 2.5 over 2. As you can tell, they all simplify to 1.25. So we know that our slope is 1.25, so that's how much it costs to rent a movie every day. So every day it will cost $1.25 to rent a movie. So if you look at your answer choice is A. The cost to rent a movie increases by $1.25 for each additional day the movie is rented. So the answer is A. And plus, this is the only answer choice that has the same slope as the one we got, 1.25. All the other slopes are completely different. Okay, number 3. What are the coordinates of the y-intercept of the graph? Now, I just want to make one thing clear. From time to time, you might see them use f of x. The f with parentheses x, the way you say this is f of x, and that means y, okay? So, of course, f of x is a fancier way of writing the letter y. So if you don't like it, you can just rewrite the problem to say y equals negative 4x plus 5. Okay? It's the same thing. The f and the f of x, or the f of x and the y are completely the same thing. But anyways, they're asking me to tell them the y-intercept. So y equals mx plus b. You should know that the y-intercept is the number without the x, also known as the letter b in our slope-intercept form. So in this case, the answer is 5. So you can write it as b equals 5, but that's not what they asked. They want you to give them the order pair. And you should know the order pair of the y-intercept will be 0, 5. So the answer is b. Now, let's move on to number 4. Which graph best describes, or which graph best represents y equals negative 4 over 3x plus 7? Okay, so I'm going to rewrite this problem. And this is what they're asking me to do, negative 4/3 x plus 7. Now, I know that I have a slope of negative 4/3 and I have a y-intercept of 7. So let's start by eliminating any of these that I can by seeing which of these does not fit the characteristics. So first, I notice that it's decreasing. So this line has to be going down from left to right. So obviously that's not A because this is increasing. Okay, increasing, and I'm decreasing. So that's not in. If you flip to the other side for the other answer choices, A could be a potential, so I'm going to put a star. C also could be a potential. D, it's not because it's increasing. Okay, so that's out. These two are potential because they're decreasing, okay? So now, let's flip back. The next thing I will identify is that the y-intercept is 7. So let's look at these two graphs. Do these two graphs have a y-intercept of 7? Well, the y-intercept here is 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. This one is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So that doesn't help. Both of them have y-intercepts at 7. Okay, moving on. The last thing I have is to find the slope of negative 4/3. One of these will have the slope of negative 4/3 and the other one won't. So let's start with answer choice B. Now, of course, you're going to choose 2 points. I'm just going to choose where it crosses the where it crosses the y-axis, and I'm going to choose this point right there. So if you count the rise over the run, you have 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 for the rise, and 1, 2, 3, and 3 for the run. And of course, you notice that it's decreasing, so that's why it's negative. So as you can see, my answer is B. Now, answer choice C. Just to double check that that's not an answer, the rise over the run. And of course, you know it's decreasing because we already settled that. So it has to be a negative slope. So I'm going to go ahead and add that negative. So the rise is 1, 2, 3. And the run is 1, 2, 3, 4. So the slope for that one is negative 3/4. So the answer is B. Okay. 7. The graph of a linear function f of x is shown below. Which of these statements correctly compares the function f of x to the function g of x equals x over 2 plus 5? Now, the reason why it's more popular to use f of x and g of x and z of x and any other letter instead of y is because once we start comparing functions together, we can't just say y. And we can't say which of these statements correctly compares the graph function y to the function y equals. It just sounds weird. And, you know, it's very important that we can identify which graph or which function we're talking about. So by doing f of x and g of x and x of x or y of x and so on, it allows us to more clearly distinguish between functions. So that's why it's very important that you get used to f of x because especially further down with your math career, you will be using f of x more commonly than just y. Okay? So anyways, they're saying, how do we compare them? If you notice all the answer choices are saying the rate of change, so you know that means the slope. Okay? So they're saying the slope of f of x and g of x is 1/2, the slope is 5, the slope is negative 1/2, and g of x is 1/2, so on. So obviously they want me to find the slope. So let's start by finding the slope of the graph, okay? We'll start there. So this point and this point work, so the rise over the run. Now first thing I notice is that it's going downstairs, so it's negative. Next thing is 1 is the rise, and the run is 2. So 1, 2. So my slope for the f of x is negative 1/2. So clearly, it eliminates answer choice A and eliminates answer choice B, because f of x is not 1/2 and f of x is not 5, so it has to be either C or D. Now the next one, g of x, what's the slope of that? Well, if you notice, the slope, you could do y equals mx plus b. The slope will be considered 1/2, because if you separate that fraction in the x, you can do y equals 1/2 x plus 5, okay? So this x over 2 is the same thing as 1/2 times x. So anyways, the slope in this case would be 1/2. And with that being said, f of x, which is the graph, because they said the f of x is the graph, the slope is negative 1/2, and the g of x is 1/2 for the slope, so the answer is C. Okay? This completes today's assignment, or today's notes. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to ask me tomorrow in class. Make sure that you do Gomez 14 the next day in class, or tonight at home, but just make sure you get that school net assignment done.